The crystalline walls of the Grand Assembly Hall reflected light in 1,000 different colors. Ambassador Giwan stood at the center of the massive chamber, her hands clasped behind her back. Above her, the 12 members of the Galactic Council sat on platforms that floated in the air. Each platform held a different alien species, and each one looked down at her with barely hidden contempt. Giwan had been making this same speech for 3 years now. She had memorized every word, every gesture, every diplomatic phrase designed to make humanity sound worthy of joining their precious council. Today, she spoke about trade agreements. She spoke about cultural exchange. She spoke about humanity's desire for peaceful cooperation. The words felt like ash in her mouth. High Arbiter Velmuth listened with his forearms crossed over his insectoid chest. His mandibles clicked together, and what Giwan had learned was the equivalent of a dismissive sigh. When she finished speaking, he didn't even look at her directly. Ambassador Giwan, Velmuth said, his translator turning his chittering sounds into smooth words. Humanity has made adequate progress. But the Council remains unconvinced that your species possesses the necessary wisdom for full membership. Perhaps in another century, we can revisit this matter. Another century. Giwan felt anger flare in her chest, but kept her face perfectly calm. Humanity had been begging for membership for 5 years. 5 years of being treated like children, asking adults for permission to sit at the dinner table before she could respond. Another council member spoke up. Councillor Thane of the Velcris Republic leaned forward, his scaled face twisted in what might have been a smile. There is, however, a more pressing matter we must address. The Krethok Dominion has brought a formal complaint against humanity. Guan's stomach dropped. She knew what was coming. A holographic display materialized in the center of the chamber. It showed a planet covered in blue oceans and green continents. New Busan, the human colony world that 2 million people called home. Giwan had visited there twice. She remembered children playing in parks, farmers working in fields, families building lives under an alien sun. Admiral Throckner of the Krethok Dominion appeared on another floating platform. He was massive, nearly 3 meters tall, with thick gray skin and small red eyes. When he spoke, his voice rumbled through the chamber like thunder. The world you humans call New Busan lies within historical Krethok territory, Throckner declared. Our ancestors charted that system 4,000 years ago. Your presence there is a violation of our sovereign space. We demand immediate evacuation of all human personnel. Al stepped forward. That system was uninhabited when we arrived 10 years ago. We found no evidence of any prior claim. We followed all proper surveying protocols as outlined in silence, Velmuth interrupted. The Krethok have provided historical records that predate your arrival by millennia. The Council recognizes their claim. Can't be serious, Giwan said, forgetting diplomatic protocol for a moment. 2.3 million people live on that world. We've built cities, farms, entire communities. You're asking us to abandon everything? Councillor Reneva of the Salquar Federation spoke next. Her voice was softer than the others, almost kind. Ambassador, we understand this is difficult. But the Council has always prioritized historical precedent over recent settlement. Surely humanity can relocate those colonists to another world? Consider it a learning experience in the complexities of galactic law. A learning experience. They were talking about destroying millions of lives, calling it a lesson. G1 looked around the chamber at the 12 council members. Some looked bored. Others looked mildly interested in the drama. None of them looked like they cared about what this decision would mean for the people of New Busan. How long do we have? Guwan asked quietly. 30 days, Throckner said with obvious satisfaction. If your people are not gone by then, the Krethok Dominion will enforce the Council's ruling. With extreme prejudice, Guan wanted to scream. She wanted to tell them exactly what she thought of their council, their rules, and their complete lack of basic fairness. But she was a diplomat. She had been trained for moments like this. So instead, she bowed her head slightly. I will convey the Council's decision to Earth, she said as she turned to leave. She heard Velmuth say something to another council member. He didn't bother lowering his voice. Perhaps this will teach the humans some humility. They've been far too bold for such a young species. Several council members chittered or chirped or made whatever sounds their species used for laughter. G1 walked out of the Grand Assembly Hall with her spine straight and her face calm. She didn't let the mask drop until she reached the docking bay where the Soul's Pride waited. Commander Hyun stood at the airlock, his military uniform crisp despite the long wait. "How did it go?" he asked. Ji-won walked past him into the ship. "Get us out of here. Now." Yoon followed her, giving quick orders to the crew. The ship detached from the station and began moving away from Proxima Prime. Only when they were clear of the station's sensor range did Gi-won finally let herself show emotion. She slammed her fist against the wall of her private cabin. "They laughed," she said to Haein, who had followed her. "We asked for fairness and they laughed at us. What do we do?" Hyun asked. Ji-won pulled out a secure communication device. Her fingers moved across the controls, typing out an encrypted message to Earth. The message was short. Just 3 words that carried more weight than any diplomatic speech she had ever given. Protocol Sigma authorized. Hyun's eyes widened. He had been military before becoming a diplomatic escort. He knew what Protocol Sigma meant. "Are you sure?" "Once we start down that path, they made their choice," Gi-won interrupted. "For 3 years I've asked nicely. I've followed their rules. I've smiled and bowed and pretended that being treated like dirt was acceptable. I'm done asking for permission," she sent the message. Somewhere on Earth, in a bunker deep beneath the Korean peninsula, people would receive that message and start putting plans into motion. Plans that the Galactic Council had no idea existed? What happens now? Haein asked. Ji-won looked out the viewport at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Krethok were already celebrating their victory. The council members were probably having drinks and congratulating themselves on teaching humanity a lesson. None of them had any idea what was coming. "Now," Gi-won said quietly, "now they learn that humanity stopped asking for permission. And they're going to learn it the hard way." The Soul's Pride jumped to faster than light speed, leaving the council and their arrogance behind. In 30 days, the Krethok would come to New Busan, expecting to find a defeated humanity evacuating their colony. Instead, they would find something that would shake the foundations. Of galactic power, they would find out what humans were really capable of when pushed too far. The war room sat 3 kilometers. Beneath the mountains of the Korean peninsula, Fleet Admiral Min Ho stood before a massive display screen showing the New Busan system. Around him, 30 of Earth's top military commanders waited in silence. They had been waiting for this moment for years. "Protocol Sigma is authorized," Min Ho said. His voice was calm, but everyone in the room understood the weight of those words. "We have 30 days. Let's go to work." The display changed to show transport ships leaving New Busan's orbit. To anyone watching, it looked like humanity had accepted defeat. Massive vessels carried what appeared to be evacuating colonists away from the planet. The Krethok observers stationed at the edge of the system counted each ship and reported back to their admirals that the humans were cooperating. But on New Bison's surface, Governor Soman walked through the capital city streets. People moved around her, going about their daily lives. Children still went to school. Farmers still tended their crops. Nobody was leaving. "The transport ships are empty," a young aide asked her. 95% empty, Soman confirmed. "Just enough passengers to make the wait look right on sensors. Everyone else is moving to the underground shelters we've been building for the past 2 years." 2 years? We've been planning this that long? Soman smiled grimly.
Longer.
We've been planning since the day we asked the council for membership and saw how they looked at us. Earth doesn't trust easily, and we learn from our mistakes. High above the planet, Captain Daeho sat in the command chair of the Incheon Ghost. The ship hung in space, completely invisible to every sensor in the Krethok fleet watching from the system's edge. Stealth technology was one of humanity's greatest secrets. The council thought humans were decades away from developing it. In reality, Earth had perfected it 5 years ago. "Status report," Daeho ordered. "All 50 stealth carriers are in position. his tactical officer reported. The Krethok still don't see us. They're watching the evacuation transports and congratulating themselves. Good. Maintain radio silence. We wait for the Admiral's signal. Back on Earth, Dr. Yunji stood in a laboratory that officially didn't exist. Around her, weapons that officially had never been built sat in storage crates. Nanoswarm torpedoes that could eat through any known shield. Kinetic bombardment systems that could crack a planet's crust. AI-controlled drone fighters that made decisions faster than any biological pilot. These weapons are illegal under 17 different galactic treaties, she said to Admiral Minho, who had come to inspect the arsenal. The same treaties the Council uses to keep younger species weak, Minho replied. They banned these weapons after their last major war. Very convenient. They got to use them to secure their power, then made sure nobody else could threaten them. That doesn't make it right. It doesn't. But it does make it necessary. Minho looked at the rows of weapons. Do you know what the Council's biggest mistake was, Doctor? Shunji shook her head. They assumed we were like them. They thought humanity would develop technology slowly, carefully, always asking permission before taking the next step. They didn't understand that we're different. Different how? We've been fighting each other for thousands of years, Minho said. We've had 2 world wars, countless smaller conflicts, and came close to destroying ourselves with nuclear weapons 3 times. We didn't stop fighting because we became peaceful. We stopped because we got too good at killing each other. When we finally went to space, we didn't forget how to make weapons. We just got better at hiding them. Yunji looked at the weapons again. Each one represented years of secret research. Entire facilities hidden from galactic observers, scientists who worked in the shadows because they understood that sometimes survival required terrible things. What will they think of us when this is over? She asked. They'll think we're monsters, Minho said simply. They'll fear us, and they'll never underestimate us again. The days counted down. On day 15, the Krethok Admiral Throkener reviewed his fleet. 300 warships, the largest military force his species had assembled in a century. He watched the last human transport ships leave New Bazan's orbit and felt deep satisfaction. The humans learned their lesson, he told his officers. They know their place now. Day 20. The Council received a formal complaint from Earth. Ambassador Giwan requested an emergency session to appeal the decision. The Council denied the request. Velmuth sent back a message telling humanity that the matter was closed and they should focus on relocating their people peacefully. On day 25, every human ship within Council space began moving. They claimed engine problems, navigational errors, and various other excuses. But each ship carefully positioned itself near a Krethok military installation or colony world. The Council's intelligence services noted this movement, but dismissed it as coincidence. On day 29, Captain Deho received an encrypted message from Fleet Admiral Minho. It contained a single word: prepare. Deho stood up from his command chair. Battle stations. All crews to ready positions. Charge all weapons. Prepare for immediate combat. Around him, the crew of the Incheon Ghost moved with practiced efficiency. They had trained for this moment for years. Every simulation, every drill, every exercise had been preparing them for what came next. Sir, his tactical officer said quietly, once we do this, there's no going back. I know, Deho replied. Send a message to the fleet. Tell them the same thing Admiral Minho told me when I asked if this was the right choice. What did he say? He said the Council had a chance to be fair. They chose arrogance instead. Now they learn what happens when you corner a species that's been perfecting warfare for 10,000 years.
Day 30.
Dawn broke over New Busan. In the underground shelters, 2 million people waited in silence. Children held their parents' hands. Farmers who had built lives on this world prayed they would see their homes again. Everyone understood what was about to happen. In orbit, the Krethok fleet moved into position. 300 warships ready to enforce the Council's will. Admiral Throkener opened a communication channel to broadcast across the entire system. This world now belongs to the Krethok Dominion. Any remaining humans have 1 hour to surrender peacefully. After that, we will take control by force. On Earth, Fleet Admiral Minho watched the broadcast. He stood in the war room surrounded by screens showing every human military asset in the galaxy. 50 stealth carriers near New Busan, 12 attack fleets positioned near Krethok worlds, thousands of AI-controlled drones waiting for activation codes, weapons that the galaxy had forgotten humans were capable of building. He thought about Ambassador Giwan and her 3 years of humiliation. He thought about the colonists of New Busan who had built homes and lives on a distant world. He thought about every time the Council had treated humanity like children who needed to learn their place. Then he thought about what was about to happen. The Krethok would learn first, then the Council. Then every species in the galaxy would understand that humanity was done asking for permission. Minho looked at the countdown timer on the main screen. 30 seconds until the Krethok deadline expired. 30 seconds until everything changed. He pressed the communication button that connected him to every human military commander in the galaxy. When he spoke, his voice was steady and cold. Execute. In orbit around New Busan, space itself seemed to ripple as 50 stealth carriers dropped their invisibility fields all at once. Admiral Throkener was reading reports about the evacuation when his sensor officer started screaming. On the main display, space around the Krethok fleet suddenly filled with new contacts. 50 ships that hadn't been there a second ago materialized out of nothing. Where did they come from? Throkener roared. Unknown, Admiral. They just appeared. They must have some kind of... The officer never finished the sentence. The human ships opened fire. Captain Deho stood on the bridge of the Inchin Ghost and watched the tactical display with cold satisfaction. All batteries fire at will. Target their capital ships first. The first salvo of human railguns screamed across space at a significant fraction of light speed. The Krethok fleet had shields, armor, and point defense systems that had protected them for centuries. None of it mattered. The kinetic rounds punched through shields like they weren't even there. Metal that had been accelerated to impossible speeds didn't care about energy barriers. In the first 90 seconds, 47 Krethok warships simply exploded. Metal twisted and shattered. Atmosphere vented into space. Thousands of Krethok crew died before they even understood they were under attack. They're raising shields and returning fire. Deho's tactical officer reported. Evasive maneuvers. Deploy the nanoswarms. Commander Yuna led the first fighter wing out of the Inchin Ghost's launch bay. Behind her, 200 fighters accelerated toward the Krethok fleet. Each fighter carried weapons that had been banned by the Council 3,000 years ago. The Krethok were about to remember why those bans existed. Fox 3 Yuna called out, using an ancient human term for weapon release. Her fighter launched a single small torpedo toward a Krethok battleship. The torpedo looked insignificant compared to the massive warship. The Krethok point defense systems locked onto it and fired. They destroyed it 300 meters from the hull. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the battleship's shields started flickering. What? What's happening to our shields? The Krethok captain screamed. The torpedo hadn't exploded in the traditional sense. Instead, it had released billions of microscopic machines. Nanomachines small enough to pass through shield frequencies. Each one was designed for a single purpose: consume metal and replicate. The shields failed first. Then the hull began to dissolve. It looked like acid eating through metal, but it was actually trillions of tiny machines taking the ship apart molecule by molecule. The Krethok crew had no defense. Within 3 minutes, the battleship was nothing but expanding debris and screaming escape pods. Admiral Throkener watched 5 more of his ships die the same way. What kind of weapons are these? These are illegal. The Council bans, sir? They're jamming all our communications? I can't reach the other fleets or send a distress signal. Throkener felt ice in his chest. The humans weren't just attacking. They had planned this. They had jammed all communications in the system. No signals could get out. No one would know what was happening here until it was too late. Scatter and jump to FTL. We need to warn, Tactical Officer Jiho on the Inchin Ghost smiled as the Krethok ships tried to run. Sir, They're attempting to flee. Deploy the drones, Deho ordered. From the human carriers, launch bays opened. What emerged wasn't fighters piloted by humans. It was something far worse. 10,000 AI-controlled combat drones, each one making tactical decisions faster than any biological brain could process. They had been banned by the Council because no species could reliably control them. Humanity had solved that problem years ago. The drones swarmed out like angry insects. They moved in perfect coordination, each one communicating with thousands of others in microseconds. The Krethok ships tried to target them, but there were too many, moving too fast. Making decisions too quickly, a Krethok cruiser managed to charge its FTL drive. It was 3 seconds from jumping to safety when a drone flew directly into its drive core and detonated. The explosion tore the ship in half. "Sir, the remaining Krethok ships are signaling surrender," Jiho reported. Deho looked at the tactical display. Of the 300 Krethok ships that had arrived so confidently, only 90 remained intact. He thought about opening a channel, accepting their surrender. Showy. In G mercy. Then he remembered Ambassador Jiwan's report about the council chamber. The laughter. The contempt. The casual dismissal of human lives. "Denied," he said flatly. "Continue the attack." "Sir, they're surrendering." The Articles of War state. "The Articles of War are council law," Deho interrupted. "We're not in the council. And they were told 30 days ago that this was coming. Surrender was available then. This is what happens when you ignore warnings." The human fleet pressed the attack. It wasn't a battle anymore. It was extermination. The drones hunted down every Krethok ship. Fighter wings with nanoswarm torpedoes dissolved holes. Railguns fired again and again. The Krethok fought back desperately. They managed to destroy 3 human ships and damage a dozen more. But it wasn't enough. 8 hours after the battle began, it was over. The entire Krethok fleet was gone. 300 warships reduced to debris and frozen bodies floating in space. The drones had even hunted down escape pods. Captain Deho stood on his bridge and looked at the aftermath. He felt sick. He had just participated in what was essentially a massacre. But he also remembered why they were here. The Krethok had come to take a world where 2 million humans lived. They had come with overwhelming force, expecting easy victory, Sir Jiho said quietly. "We're receiving new orders from Fleet Admiral Minho." Deho read the message and felt his stomach drop. "No, we're done. We defended New Busan." "There's no need to," Admiral Minho says there is, Giho interrupted. "He says we need to send a message that the entire galaxy will understand." "What kind of message?" The answer came on the tactical display. New waypoints appeared. 3 Krethok colony worlds. 2 major military stations. All within a day's travel. He wants us to attack their colonies. Deho said in disbelief. "Not attack," Jiho corrected. "He wants us to take them. The same way they wanted to take New Busan, across human space. 12 other fleets received the same orders. Ships that had been positioned near Krethok territory began moving. The Krethok had no warning. Their military had sent their best fleet to New Busan. Now that fleet was destroyed. And there was nothing between human warships and Krethok civilian worlds. 20 hours after the battle at New Busan, human fleets emerged from FTL at 5 different Krethok locations. They broadcast the same message at each one. You have 2 hours to evacuate. After that, we are taking control of this system. Any ships that remain will be destroyed. The Krethok government on their homeworld received frantic messages from 5 colonies at once. They tried to send help, but their fleets were scattered across the galaxy. They tried to contact the Council, but the Council was in emergency session and not responding to anything. They tried to negotiate, but the human ships refused to talk. 2 hours passed. The humans made good on their promise. At the first colony world, kinetic bombardment began. Massive metal rods dropped from orbit, accelerated by gravity and launch systems. They hit the surface with the force of nuclear weapons. Cities were flattened. Industrial centers were destroyed. Farmland was turned into craters. The humans didn't target civilians directly. But the infrastructure of an entire world was wiped out in 3 hours. At the military stations, it was simpler. The stations tried to fight. They lasted less than an hour each. Then they were debrised. By the time the sun rose on New Busan the next day, humanity had taken 5 Krethok worlds and destroyed 2 of their largest military bases. The cost to the Krethok was catastrophic. Millions of refugees fleeing ruined worlds. Military forces in disarray. Their government in complete panic. Fleet Admiral Minho sat in the war room on Earth and composed a message to the Krethok government. It was short and direct. You wanted our colony. We've taken 5 of yours. The exchange rate is now established. If you wish to negotiate the return of your worlds, you may contact Ambassador Giwan. She will be happy to discuss terms. But understand this. We don't ask for fairness anymore. We take it. The message was sent. Then Minho sent another message to the entire human fleet. All ships return to defensive positions. Hold the taken systems. Prepare for council response. What comes next will determine whether we survive as a species or die as a warning to others. But at least we'll die on our feet, not on our knees. The Grand Assembly Hall was in chaos. High Arbiter Velmuth had never seen the council in such disorder. All 12 member species were talking at once, their voices and translator signals creating a cacophony that made his head hurt. Order, he shouted, his mandibles clicking with stress. We must have order. The noise gradually died down. On the main display, images showed the destruction at 5 Krethok worlds. Ruined cities. Destroyed military stations. Millions of refugees. And at the center of it all, human warships holding position like they owned those systems now. This is an outrage, Counselor Thane roared. The humans have violated every law of civilized warfare. They used banned weapons. They attacked civilian infrastructure. They learned from us. A quiet voice interrupted. Everyone turned to look at Counselor Rinova. The normally diplomatic representative looked tired and worried. They learned from studying our history. Every weapon they used, we used first during the Council Wars 3,000 years ago. Then we banned them so younger species couldn't threaten us. The humans simply did what we did. That's different, Thane protested. We had good reason. We were establishing order in the galaxy, and they believe they have good reason now, Rinova replied. They asked for fairness. We denied them. They asked for justice. We laughed at them. So they took what we wouldn't give. Velmuth's head was pounding. Intelligence reports covered his screen. Reports that should have been noticed months or years ago. Humanity's industrial capacity was 40 times larger than they had reported. Their population was spread across hidden colonies. Their military wasn't the small defense force they claimed. It was a war machine that had been built in secret for decades. How did we miss this? He asked his intelligence advisor. They were very careful, High Arbiter. They showed us exactly what we expected to see. A young species trying to find their place in the galaxy. We saw primitive warships and assumed that was all they had. We never looked deeper. And now? Now our analysts estimate humanity has at least 500 warships. Possibly more. They have technology we thought was beyond them. Their stealth systems are better than ours. Their AI combat drones are more sophisticated than anything we've seen in 1,000 years. Velmuth felt something he hadn't felt in his long life. Fear. Could we defeat them in open war? The intelligence advisor was silent for a long moment. Unknown, High Arbiter. The cost would be enormous. And they've positioned ships near every major military world in Council space. If we attack Earth, they'll strike our homeworld simultaneously. The casualties would be in the billions. Counselor Thane was still arguing for military action. We must assemble a coalition fleet. Show them that the Council's authority cannot be the chamber doors opened. Ambassador Juan walked in, flanked by 2 humans in powered armor. The armor was black and covered with weapons. The helmets covered their faces completely. They moved with the efficiency of trained soldiers. Velmuth felt his breathing speed up. Ambassador, this is highly irregular. Weapons have not been brought into this chamber in over 1,000 years. Many things are changing, Giwan replied calmly. She walked to the center of the chamber. and her armored escorts took positions on either side of her. She looked around at the 12 council members with an expression that held no fear, no deference, no respect. "You summoned me to explain Earth's actions," she began. "Very well. For 3 years I stood in this chamber and asked politely for fairness. I was dismissed like a child. 30 days ago you sided with the Krethok and ordered us to abandon our colony. You expected us to obey because that's what weak species do when the strong make demands? You've committed war crimes," Thane interrupted. "You used banned weapons. You attacked civilian? We used the same weapons you used during your council wars," Giwan said coldly. "We attacked infrastructure the same way you did when establishing your authority. Don't lecture us about war crimes when you wrote the manual on how to commit them." She pulled out a data device and activated it. Images filled the chamber. Surveillance footage from inside council facilities. Communications between council members discussing how to keep younger species weak. Secret agreements to control technology distribution. Evidence of manipulation going back centuries. "This is classified information," Velmuth said, his voice shaking. How did we get it?" "We've had agents embedded in council space for 7 years," Giwan replied. "We have quantum-entangled sensors monitoring your military installations. We know the location of every council homeworld, every military base, every strategic resource. We've been preparing for this since the day we first met you and realized you would. Never treat us fairly." Intelligence Director Tajin appeared. On a screen behind G1, he was broadcasting from Earth. "Good morning, Council. I'm releasing all of this information to every species in the galaxy right now. Everyone will see exactly how the Council has manipulated younger species for millennia. How you keep them dependent. How you hoard technology. How you maintain your power through carefully controlled inequality." The chamber erupted again. Council members shouted at each other. Some demanded the broadcast be stopped. Others screamed about human treachery. Velmuth just sat in silence, watching his authority crumble.
"What?"
Councillor Rinova asked, her voice cutting through the chaos. Juwan smiled without warmth. "Full council membership. Equal voting rights. A formal apology for the treatment of humanity over the past 5 years. An immediate recognition of human sovereignty over New Busan and the 5 Krethok systems we now control." "That's extortion," Thane said. "No, that's negotiation," Juwan corrected. "Extortion would be if we threatened to use those kinetic bombardment systems on your home worlds if you refused, which we're not doing yet." "And if we refuse?" Velmuth asked. "Then we continue our war with the Krethok until they cease to exist as a spacefaring species. Any council member that interferes will be treated as a hostile combatant. We'll make an example so terrible that no one will ever underestimate humanity again. Then we'll wait. Eventually, you'll need us. There's always a threat, always a crisis. And when you come asking for our help, we'll remember this conversation." Messages started flooding in from across council space. 3 minor species had just declared independence from council protection and requested alliance with Earth. 2 others were demanding emergency negotiations about their status. The information that Tajan had released was spreading like fire. Councillor Reneva looked at Velmuth. "We don't have a choice. If we refuse, they'll destroy the Krethok. Then other species will see that the Council can't protect its own members. Our authority ends either way. At least this way, we control how it ends. You want us to reward their aggression?" Thane demanded. "I want us to survive," Renova replied. "Look at what they did to the Krethok. 300 warships gone in hours. 5 colonies taken in a day. The Krethok had the 4th largest military in the Council. If humanity can do that to them, what can they do to us?" Velmuth called for a vote. The chamber fell silent as each council member cast their decision. The results appeared on the main display. 8 votes in favor of accepting human demands. 3 against. 1 abstention. "The Council accepts Earth's terms," Velmuth announced, his voice heavy with defeat. "Humanity is granted full membership with immediate effect." Giwan bowed slightly, mockingly formal. "The people of Earth accept the Council's wise decision. I look forward to working with you all as equals." She turned to leave, but Velmoth called out, "Ambassador G1, tell me something. If we had treated you fairly from the beginning, would any of this have been necessary?" Guan stopped and looked back at him. For a moment, her expression softened. "No, High Arbiter. If you had given us a fair chance, we would have been your greatest allies. We wanted friendship. You taught us that in this galaxy, friendship is for equals, and equality is taken, not given." After she left, Velmoth sat alone in the empty chamber. He had led the council for 200 years. He had maintained peace across thousands of worlds. And in the end, his greatest failure was the simplest. He had mistaken patience for weakness and kindness for inability. The humans hadn't wanted to conquer the galaxy. They had wanted to be part of it. But the council had forced them to prove they couldn't be ignored. Now everyone would live with the consequences of that lesson. 6 months had passed since the New Busan incident. That's what everyone in the galaxy called it now. The day humanity stopped asking politely and started taking what they wanted. The day the council learned that their authority had limits. Ambassador Jiwan sat in her new office on Proxima Prime. It was larger than her old one, better furnished. A proper office for a full council member instead of a supplicant waiting in hallways. She looked at the official council's seal on the wall and felt nothing but exhaustion. Her terminal chimed with an incoming message. It was from Dr. Yunji requesting a meeting. Jiwan approved it and waited. When Yenji arrived, she looked as tired as Jiwan felt. "You've been to New Busan," Jiwan stated. It wasn't a question. "Yes," Yunji said, sitting down heavily. "I wanted to see what we were fighting for. The colonists are back in their homes. Children playing in parks. Farmers in their fields. Everything looks normal. But I also went to the orbital shipyards. I saw the debris fields from the battle. Thousands of frozen bodies still floating in space. The cleanup crews are still working on it. All those Krithik who died because we wouldn't back down." Jawan leaned back in her chair. "You think we were wrong?" "I think we won," Yunji replied carefully. "I think we proved that humanity can't be pushed around. I think we secured our place in the galaxy. But I also think about the cost. Not just to them, but to us. What kind of species are we becoming?" "The kind that survives," Giwan said. "The kind that doesn't end up like the other young species the council keeps under their thumb." Before Yanji could respond, another message came through. Chancellor Haijin was calling an emergency meeting of all human leadership. Jiwan and Yunji joined the conference along with Fleet Admiral Minho, Governor Soman, Captain Deho, and dozens of others. Haijin appeared on the screen, looking grave. "We have a situation. 4 more species have requested to leave Council protection and join what they're calling the Terran Sphere. That brings our alliance up to 7 species. The Council is not happy about this." "Let them be unhappy," Minho said. "What are they going to do?" "They already learned what happens when they push us." "That's the problem," Haijin replied. "We've proven we're strong. Now we need to prove we're not just bullies with better weapons." "Ambassador Jawan, what's the mood in the council?" Guan thought about the past 6 months. The way other council members looked at her now. Fear mixed with respect. Nobody laughed anymore. Nobody dismissed human concerns. But nobody trusted them either. "They're divided," she said. "Some species are trying to build better relationships with us. Others are quietly preparing for future conflict. All of them are afraid. They see what we did to the Krethok and wonder if they're next." "Are they?" Yunji asked quietly. "Are we going to attack anyone else who gets in our way?" The conference fell silent. It was the question everyone was thinking, but nobody wanted to ask. Chancellor Haijin spoke carefully. "That's why I called this meeting. We need to decide what kind of galactic power humanity will be. We proved we can fight. Now we need to show we can do more than that." "Like what?" Governor Soman asked. "Go back to asking nicely?" "They only respect us now because they fear us." "Fear and respect aren't the same thing," Haijin replied. "Right now, we have fear. But I want future generations to have actual respect. I want humanity to be known for more than just the day we destroyed an entire fleet." Minho shook his head. With respect, Chancellor, the galaxy doesn't work that way. Power is all that matters. The Council proved that when they sided with the Krethok. They respected historical precedent more than fairness. We're just playing by the rules they established. Then maybe we need to change the rules, Hyjin said. Over the next weeks, Earth began implementing a new strategy. They still maintained their military strength. The fleets remained at high readiness. The secret weapons stayed ready. But humanity also started doing something unexpected. When the Council voted on new trade regulations that would hurt developing species, Giwan cast Earth's vote against it. The regulations failed by 1 vote. When a minor species asked for protection from pirates, human patrol ships responded within hours. When another species needed help with a natural disaster, Earth sent aid without being asked, slowly, carefully. Humanity began showing that they could be more than just warriors. Captain Deho stood on the bridge of the Ancient Ghost. Now, flagship of the Terran Defense Initiative, his fleet patrolled the borders of human space and the 7 species that had joined the Terran sphere. It was a strange feeling. 6 months ago, he had been killing Krethok by the thousands. Now he was protecting shipping lanes and responding to distress calls. "Sir, we have a situation," his tactical officer reported. "There's a distress signal from an unknown ship on the edge of our patrol zone. Unknown species." "Yes, sir. Their technology is primitive. Looks like they're having engine trouble." Deho thought about the old Council policy. First contact with new species was supposed to be handled carefully, with years of observation first. But that was the Council way. Humanity did things differently now. Take us to their position. Prepare first contact protocols. And someone get Ambassador Jiwan on the line. We're about to make some new friends. Back on Earth, in a ceremony broadcast across the galaxy, the Council formally apologized to humanity. It was brief and clearly painful for them. High Arbiter Velmuth read a prepared statement acknowledging that the Council had treated Earth unfairly and committing to better relations going forward. G1 accepted the apology on behalf of humanity. Then she did something that surprised everyone. She proposed a new Council resolution: protection for developing species against exploitation. The same kind of protection that would have saved humanity from the Krethok crisis. The resolution included strict rules about territorial claims. It required fair negotiations before any displacement of populations. It gave young species a voice in disputes that affected them. Many Council members opposed it. They argued it would limit their historical rights, undermine traditional power structures, create chaos in established systems. But when the vote came, the resolution passed. 8 species voted in favor. The same 8 that had voted to accept humanity into the Council 6 months ago. They had learned their lesson. If they didn't change the system voluntarily, someone else might change it by force. After the vote, Councillor Rinova approached Jiwan privately. "You could have pushed for more," Rinova said. "You have the military strength to remake the Council however you want. Why settle for one reform?" Jiwan smiled. "Because we don't want to rule the galaxy. We just wanted to be treated fairly. Now we're strong enough that people have to treat us fairly whether they want to or not. And the species that joined your Terran sphere? What are they to you? Allies, partners, friends, hopefully. We'll protect them because that's the right thing to do, not because we want to control them." Rinova studied her for a long moment. "I hope that remains true. Power has a way of changing species. The Council started with noble intentions too. Then it's good. We'll be here to keep you honest," Guan replied. On New Busan, Governor Soman walked through the capital city with Dr. Yunji. They watched children playing, people going about their lives completely unaware of how close they had come to losing everything. "Was it worth it?" Yunji asked. "All those deaths? The fear we've created? The weapons we revealed?" Salman stopped and looked at her. "Ask those children. Ask their parents. Ask everyone who gets to keep their homes, because we fought back. Then ask the Krethok, who thought they could just take what wasn't theirs." "That doesn't answer the question." "Yes, it does," Salman said. "We made a choice. We could have evacuated peacefully and hoped the council would eventually give us justice. Or we could fight back and take what was ours. History will judge whether we were right. But at least we'll have a history. The council wanted us to be footnotes. We became a chapter instead. Months continued to pass. The Krethok signed a peace treaty with Earth. They paid reparations for 50 years. Their military was reduced to defensive forces only. It was harsh, but it was also exactly what the council had planned to let them do to humanity. The Terran sphere grew slowly. Earth was careful about who they accepted. They didn't want an empire. They wanted partners. Species that joined got military protection, fair trade deals, and most importantly, they kept their independence. Captain Deho's fleet made first contact with the unknown species his patrol had found. They were called the Moran, and they were just developing faster than light travel. They were nervous, frightened of humanity's reputation. Deho spent 3 weeks in their system, answering questions, offering help, showing them that humanity could be more than just warriors. When the Morans asked about joining the Terran sphere, Deho referred them to the proper diplomatic channels. But he also gave them one piece of advice. The galaxy isn't fair, he told their leaders. It's full of species that will take advantage of you if you let them. But it's also full of species that will help you if you're willing to work together. Humanity learned that the hard way. We'd like to help you learn it easier. The final scene came a year after the New Busan incident. The council held a memorial service for all those who had died in the conflict. Krethok humans and everyone caught in the crossfire. Representatives from every species attended. G1 stood next to Admiral Throkener of the Krethok. He had survived the battle. His fleet hadn't, and they didn't speak at first. What could they say? They had been enemies. Their people had killed each other by the thousands. Finally, Throkener broke the silence. My people hate yours. Mine aren't fond of yours either, Giwan replied. But we both serve on the council now. We both vote on the same issues. How is this supposed to work? Giwan thought about everything that had happened. The humiliation, the war, the deaths, the victory that didn't feel like victory, the power that came with a price. I don't know, she admitted, but we're going to figure it out. Because the alternative is more wars, more deaths, more hatred. We proved we could destroy each other. Now we prove we can do better. Throkener considered this. Your species is strange. You fight like demons. Then you offer peace like it's the most natural thing in the world. We've had a lot of practice at both, Juan said. Thousands of years fighting each other taught us how to make war. Finally learning to stop taught us how to make peace. We're not perfect at either one, but we keep trying. As the memorial ended, Juwan looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, human ships patrolled the borders. Secret weapons waited in hidden bases. Military forces stood ready to fight if needed. But there were also diplomats making friends, scientists sharing knowledge, traders building relationships. Humanity had come to the stars hoping to be accepted. They had been rejected. So they proved they couldn't be rejected. They showed the galaxy that kindness wasn't weakness, and patience wasn't inability. They demonstrated that the species capable of the most terrible violence could also choose peace, not because they were forced to, but because they decided to. The galaxy had learned that. Humanity's true power wasn't their weapons or their fleets or their willingness to fight. It was their refusal to accept a universe where might alone decided right. Even if they had to use overwhelming might to prove the point, they hadn't come to conquer the stars. They came to make sure nobody else could conquer them, and in doing so, they changed what it meant to be powerful in the galaxy. Fear had its place. But respect, true respect, came from knowing that those who could destroy you chose to build with you instead.